Okay, guys, let me use this, vegetable and try to explain to you the surfaces and borders of the prostate gland. As you all know, the prostate gland is a fibromuscular glandular structure that surrounds the prostatic urethra. So now in here, I put a straw, and the straw will represent the prostatic part of the urethra this way, okay? Actually, it's roughly the size of a chestnut, but I don't have a chestnut, so that's why I thought I will use this to demo. Okay, so situation as we discussed before, like if you remember, I had shown this to you before, yeah, the paper model of the urinary bladder, wherein I said this was the neck of the urinary bladder, right? So I'm going to put the neck of the urinary bladder here. So this would be the neck of the urinary bladder. So the prostate gland is sandwiched between the neck of the urinary bladder as well as this part. This is the urogenital diaphragm. So it's in between these two, sandwiched between these two. Okay. So again, going back to the prostate gland. So this would be the base of the prostate gland, and this part which is facing downwards towards the urogenital diaphragm, that would be the apex of the prostate gland. Is that clear? Okay. So now let me talk about the relations, the anterior relations and the posterior relations of the gland. So let me bring this up for you. So here is the pelvis, right? This is the pelvis. So now what is this? Here is the posterior surface of the pubic symphysis, or the body of the pubis. Okay. So now what I have done is I have put these two things here on the side. So this would represent the puboprostatic ligament. So there would be one medial and the lateral puboprostatic ligament. Okay, so this, as you know, this is the levator ani muscle. Okay, so imagine I'm going to put this into it. So this is the anterior surface. Let me put it here. So you can see this would be the anterior surface here. Anterior surface. So anterior surface, what is it related to? It will be related to the retropubic fat, is it not? And also, what is the veins what we see here? The vesical venous plexus. So you will see the vesical venous plexus, and also it is related to the ligaments here, is it not? What ligaments are they? Medial and the lateral puboprostatic ligament. Okay, and on the sides, on either side, it will be related to the levator ani. Is that clear? Okay. Now, what is it related on to the posterior part? What is it related on to the posterior part? Now imagine this would be the rectum. Okay, so I'm going to put this like that, rectum. Okay, so all right, okay, that's the rectum. So what is the space? What is this? What happens to the peritoneum? Peritoneum will cover the superior surface of the urinary bladder. Remember that? It will cover the superior surface of the urinary bladder. Then goes to the posterior surface, but not fully, is it not? And then it reflects onto the anterior surface of the rectum. Now below that area, it is not covered by peritoneum, but instead it is covered by connective tissue, and that connective tissue is called as the rectovesical fascia, is it not? Rectovesical fascia. Now if this is a rectum, so this surface, the posterior surface of the prostate gland, can be examined or can be felt, okay, through the rectum. It's about 4 centimeters above the anus. Is that clear? Now let's look at the posterior surface further. So what is seen in the posterior surface? I have drawn two things here. One is a transverse groove here, and then there is a vertical groove here. So this transverse groove divides the whole of the posterior surface into two parts. So a part above it, a smaller part, while a larger part below it. Again, you see the transverse groove. Transverse groove divides the whole of the posterior part into a smaller superior part and a lower larger part. Okay. Now, if you carefully look at this transverse groove, you will get to see the opening of the, what is that? That is the ejaculatory duct. So here I have just made with the help of this. This would be the seminal vesicle. This would be the ductus deferens. The ampulla, it should be wider. And they merge together to form the ejaculatory duct. Okay. And you know where it opens into, right? Okay. So now if you're going to go down further, so this is the median sulcus. Okay, median sulcus. The median sulcus will divide the posterior surface, that is a larger posterior part, into two, what are they? Lateral lobes. Is that clear? So on the posterior surface, if you look at it, so you get to see a transverse groove and a median sulcus. Transverse groove will divide the whole of this into a smaller upper part and a larger lower part. Larger lower part is further divided by a median sulcus into two lateral lobes. Okay, so how many lobes do you know now? These are the lateral lobe, okay, two lateral lobe. This would be the median lobe, okay. Now the area here, this part, we can call it as the posterior lobe. So you have 1, 2, and this is the third, right? And then the rest of it here, we can call it as the anterior lobe, okay. So that surgically we have anterior lobe, we have a median lobe, we have a posterior lobe, and we have two lateral lobes, okay. Is that clear? Yeah. So anatomically, if you're going to talk about it, we have only two lobes. That is, we will talk about the median lobe and posterior lobe, or the lateral lobe, sorry. Median lobe and two lateral lobes, okay. Now, coverings, as I mentioned before in the resource session, so coverings, so there's a peel here, right? So what is the peel? The peel is of the potato itself. So likewise, the true capsule will be nothing but the condensation of the fibrous stroma of the gland itself, okay? While false capsule is derived from the extraperitoneal connective tissue, whatever is there outside, whatever connective tissue is there outside. So here in this case, it will be pelvic fascia. Now between the true and the false capsule, what will you see? You will see the venous plexus, right? You will see the prostatic venous plexus, okay? Yeah. So, and again, coming back to the lobes, I told you anatomically we have two lobes. We have the median lobe and two lateral lobes. One median lobe, two lateral lobe, okay? While surgically, they are incomplete lobes, but we have 5 of them. What are they? Median, a posterior lobe, 2 lateral lobe, and 1 anterior lobe, okay? All right, so let's divide it and see where exactly do you see the anterior lobe. Now, this is the urethra, right? So, let me push it further. This is the urethra. It's a straw, but I'm representing that as the urethra. Now, here, the area of the tissue which is seen in front of the straw, okay, that will represent the anterior lobe, which do not consist of any glandular tissue. Is that clear? Next is the median or the middle lobe. So, where is the ejaculatory duct here? This is the ejaculatory duct, right? Now, this is the posterior surface of the urethra. Now, the tissue behind the posterior to the posterior surface of the urethra and above the ejaculatory duct, that whole tissue will represent the median lobe, okay? So, this consists of glands. It's rich in glands. Then, we have the posterior lobe. So, posterior lobe is, you can take it this much, okay? Thus, this is a horizontal sulcus, right, or the transverse groove. So this area of the tissue, we can consider that as the posterior lobe. So it is situated behind the urethra. Yes, the urethra would be passing like that. So part of the tissue behind the urethra and below the ejaculatory duct. So this part we can consider it as the posterior lobe. And then we are left with the lateral lobes. We have 2 right and the left, that's seen on either side of the urethra. Okay, so this part will be the lateral lobe. Is that clear? Okay. Now, I'm just talking about the zonal classification of the prostate. Some of the students were confused with the zonal classification, for which I just made another paper model. Okay, let me put it like that for you. So we have 4 zones: transitional zone, we have central zone, we have peripheral zone, and anterior fibromuscular zone or the stroma. Now, okay, what is this? This will represent the urethra, okay? So this would be the urethra, okay? What is this? This would be the ejaculatory duct. And how is the ejaculatory duct formed? It is formed by the seminal vesicle and the ampulla merging together, okay? So I made only one like that, so just take it like that, okay? All right, so now, what is the transitional zone or the median lobe? Now I'm going to push, this is the posterior, this is the anterior part of the urethra. Now I'm taking a bit of the prostatic tissue and I'm going to put it around the urethra. But where have I put it? Where have I put it? Proximal to the ejaculatory duct. This is the ejaculatory duct. So you can see the part of the tissue surrounding the urethra, but it is proximal to the ejaculatory duct. Okay. So this is where the benign prostatic hyperplasia, this tissue is the one which undergoes benign prostatic hyperplasia. Okay, so this zone is called as the transitional zone. Okay, so again, that is nothing but the median lobe, is it not? So again, where is it seen? Surrounds the urethra, proximal to the ejaculatory duct. Is that clear? Now next is the central zone. Now central zone, what is this? This is the ejaculatory duct, right? So now again, I'm taking some tissue, going around the ejaculatory duct and putting it this way. You see that? So surrounds ejaculatory duct, and you can see it going through and through like that. Okay, so it is not going around the urethra. So this is the central zone. Is that clear? This is the central zone. Now the next is a larger zone. Okay, this constitute about 70% of the bulk of the prostate gland, and site of almost 70% of prostatic carcinoma also. So let us see where this is seen. So what I'm doing, you can see, I have simply taken this, put it around this. You see that? So this whole tissue, we call it as a peripheral zone, except for a small area here. Okay, so this area is, I'm going to put some tissue here. So that will be the anterior. Is that clear? So this is how it is, the peripheral zone. It constitutes the bulk of the, where is it? This is the posterior, this is the lateral, and also the apical part of the gland is involved there. Okay, anterior is not seen. The median, you know where it is, right? Yeah. So anterior, as I told you, this will be the anterior fibromuscular stroma. So this is non-glandular region. I hope it was clear for you. So that is it. If you have any doubts, you can just ask me later. Thank you, guys.